So we have here Professor Muhammad Sukri Saleh. Uh, Welcome to our session, Professor. I will read his short bio first. So Professor Dr. Muhammad Sukri Saleh is the honorary professor at the Center for Islamic Development Management Studies, or ISDEF, in University Sains Malaysia in Pulau Pinang, Malaysia. He was the founding director of the center, and he pioneered a new field called Islamic Development Management, and he's currently a adjunct professor in Faculty of Islamic Development Management, and also in University Islam Sultan Syarif Ali or UNISA in Brunei Darussalam. Okay, during his 39-year tenure as an academician, he was appointed by 18 universities and academic institutions in 7 countries: Malaysia, Jordan, Arab, Saudi Arabia, Japan, United Kingdom, Brunei Darussalam, and Indonesia. Okay, so he studied Bachelor of Social Science from University Sains Malaysia, Diploma in Economic and Master of Art, Rural Study from University of Anglia, United Kingdom, and Doctor of Philosophy, Islamic-based development from University of Oxford, United Kingdom. So the floor is yours, Professor. You might start the session right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Mbak. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Alhamdulillah rabbil alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala asrafil anbiya wal mursalin. Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim. Astaghfirullah azim, astaghfirullah azim, astaghfirullah azim. First of all, thank you very much for inviting me to be together. And Alhamdulillah, I have learned a lot from Pak Hasnul just now. It's very technical, and so because it is very technical and also very micro, so probably my presentation is quite different. I would like to take you to a more philosophical things, and also more macro, and we would like to see the big picture of the innovation and values in Islamic business. So I would like to share my screen here. Yeah, the title of my talk today is very simple. I'm trying to do my best to get it in line with the themes of the conference. And the title is Innovation and Values in Islamic Business. We are going to talk about innovation, and we're going to talk about values, and innovation and values from Islamic perspective to be adopted, to be applied in Islamic business, inshallah. So definitely, as Pak Hasnul has shown just now, innovation is very important. And in fact, innovation is commendable because innovation reflects the creativity of someone, people, especially like Pak Hasnul as a CEO, to maximize accomplishments of the objectives of the company or of the business. Yeah? Apart from that, innovation also means creating new things. It is not actually modifying. It creates new things, and without modifying it. So we can see that the business world now have changed and erased a lot of things that we have done before. So for instance, definitely ways of communication, the smartphone with the online, all that. And then also the demise of the Kodak, for instance, the film camera, as opposed to now we are using the digital camera. And I can still remember that when I was young, I used typewriter to write my thesis. But then now we have computer, and we can hardly see any computer anymore, unless if we go to the antique shops and all that. And we can see also the kind of business, the online business, such as Amazon, Alibaba, and all that happening. And actually, we are changing into a new things, which probably Sada was saying that that we are facing with three tomorrows. The first tomorrow is the present things that we are doing, the present, and then the familiar futures, the familiar futures, that we are very familiar with the things, and the other one is the unthought futures. And when I go back to my young age, what I'm facing now at the moment is actually unthought of. Yeah, unthought of, because I don't think that I can't think of anything that, like smartphones, computer, and all that. So it erase some things and then it create new things. And innovation, that is innovation, which means that it completely creating new things. For us, ideally, if you were to take, if you were to have a complete innovation or an ideal innovation, so we have to say no to three things. We have to say no to three things. Number one is no imitation. So what we have heard from Pak Asno just now, Pak Asno created a kind of business to maximize the profit in sorts of ways without imitating from the ways that are available in the market. And the other one is no competition. Definitely, Pak Asno just now was looking at the competition, but then an ideal innovation, I think we don't have to think about the competition. What we need to think is just to create new things. And if we need to compete with the other people, they have to compete with us. They have to compete with the arena that we establish. And we can learn from Pak Asno just now that he created kind of the stages of the price of the SIM card. And then when he set the arena with the rules, and then the other telco comes in to compete. So we are not actually competing, but we are creating the competition with our own rules, with our own regulations. And this is innovation. Like that, no imitation. Why no imitation? Because we want to be the leader in business. In order to be the leader, we have to be innovative, and innovation means that we are leading the business world. So, say for instance, what probably Steve Jobs was doing, and Bill Gates was doing. I think they didn't imitate it from anybody else, but they are creating new things, and the people are demanding it, and then the market goes as successful as we have seen. The other thing is no benchmarking. If we were to benchmark our endeavor, our business endeavor, on a company that we seems that we see successful, I think we cannot be the leader in the business, but instead we have to be the followers. By the times that we try to catch up with what we are doing, and the company that we put the benchmarking has moved towards, has moved upwards, and then eventually we live as followers, not as leaders. So in order to have an ideal total innovation, complete innovation, so we have to hold to the principles that no imitation, no competition, no benchmarking. Yeah, and then if you are seriously thinking of innovating, so we need to create new operational mechanisms. And this new operational mechanism has to be within the new philosophical framework. So with the new philosophical framework, with the new operational mechanisms, then we can produce new kinds of products. We have to produce new kind of products. We have to produce new ways of production process. We have to formulate new ways of transaction, and we have to have a new ways of wealth or profit revenue accumulation, and also we have to have a new ways of distribution, and also new ways of consumption and so forth. So all are new, and the basic principles of all these new operational mechanism within the new philosophical frameworks are the 7 principles. The first one that we need to have is a new mode. This is very important. The philosophical underpinnings is we have to create our own philosophical underpinnings, and then setting that philosophical underpinning as our mode, yeah, to run our business. And then number 2 is to create a new actors with that philosophical underpinnings. The actors of business, especially in our company, we have to create them to be a new kind of actors as opposed to probably the existing kind of actors. And also the new time scale. We heard from Pak Asno just now that firstly, the promotion is 3 months, and they extended to another 3 months, they extended to another 3 months, totally 9 months. And it is more of a short-term time scale. Yeah, but we need to have a new time scale, which will I explain later if it is look from Islamic perspective. And then also we have to have our new framework, new methodology, new means, yeah, new instruments, and the new ultimate aim. Bear in mind that what we are going to innovate is the business from Islamic perspective, based on Islamic perspective. So for that, I think Islam is able to offer such a complete new innovation as a replacement of the conventional business with distinctive philosophical underpinnings, and then through operational mechanisms that may seem the same. I'll explain later on. But then the 7 principles that we need to have is, number 1 is the mold. The molds, the philosophical underpinnings of the Islamic business when we are dealing with the innovation is definitely the Islamic worldview. So we can't base our innovation, our business innovation, on the conventional business worldview, because we need to have an Islamic tasawwur, yeah, Islamic worldview, and then we have to have the Islamic epistemology. And this, the worldview, the Islamic worldview and the Islamic epistemology will become the modes of our business innovation, inshallah. I was saying also that we have to have new actors. What I mean by new actors here is the vicegerents and servant of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the functions of the actors, the business actors, is no more a profit maker, but instead they are dealing with the business, with the innovation as a vicegerents, the Khalifatullah, vicegerents of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and simultaneously as the servants of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So this is our role, this is our functions of being here in this world, to be the representative of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to manage the world here, and also at the same time we have to submit to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as a servant. So meaning that the actors are also changed. The time scale, Pak Asno was giving 9 months just now as an example. But if we were to innovate from an Islamic perspective in Islamic business, we have to have a longer time scale. We have to take into account our pre-birth world, yeah, alam malakut, where we promise with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, alastu bi rabbikum. Allah asks us, do you agree that I am your God and you are my servants? And Qalu Bala Shaydina, all of us were saying that, yes, we do. This is the master plan of an actor to be being in this world. And then now we are in the present world. Yeah, to to show to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to prove to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that what we have promised with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what we have agreed during the previous world are now we are now doing it, we are now executing it. And whatever that we have done, including our business, it is part of our proof to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that we follow our promise with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And definitely the third world is the world hereafter, where the rewards or the punishment will be faced by us based on what we have done in this world, whether we have fulfilled the promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala during the previous world. Yeah, so the time scale is longer. Anything that we think of a business, so we think of what will happen to us in the world hereafter. It's not merely for this present world. And number 4 is the framework. The framework. We have to have a new framework, and the new framework is the obligatory knowledge. All of us have to have our obligatory knowledge. In Arabic, we call it fardu ain, which consists of tawhid, fiqh, and also tasawwuf. So tawhid is dealing with aqidah. So in executing our Islamic business, in innovating our Islamic business, we cannot depart ourselves from our faith, from our Islamic faith. And then the execution of the things that we are doing in business, we have to base on the Sharia, the regulations, which we learn from fiqh. And also at the same time, we have also to have a nice attributes, the mahmudah, which we learn from tasawwuf. So this is the framework. The obligatory knowledge is the framework of the Islamic business innovation. And number 5 is the methodology. Methodology is the worship, the ibadah. In whatever that we do, including in innovating our business, we need to think and we need to ensure that actually what we are doing can be regarded and accepted by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as ibadah, as worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So every second we need to remember this, we need to fulfill this worshipping to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and therefore this is why I call it the methodology. And definitely number 6 is the means, the means, and natural resources are the means to fulfill or to execute, to implement, to realize the innovation they were aimed for. And lastly, we have to ensure that our ultimate aim is not the revenues, our ultimate aim is not the profit, but instead our ultimate aim is the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, mardatillah. And inshallah, by having the mardatillah from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we will have the benefit, we will have the revenues, we will have the profit, we will have the al-falah, hasana fid dunya wa hasana fil akhirah, inshallah. So these are the 7 principles that we need to follow in innovating our business from the Islamic perspective. I mean to say that actually it's not the innovation itself that must be Islamic, but the business itself must be Islamic. So, and then inshallah, these 7 principles will guarantee such a phenomenon. This innovation definitely comes together with Islamic business values. Yeah, with Islamic business values. We were thinking of Islamic business value. We can divide the Islamic business values, and in fact, the Islamic values into 2. Number 1 is the basic values, which is based on the Tawhid, the Khalifatullah, the worship, the tazkiyah, purification of our souls, and also ihsan. This is basic values that need to be possessed by the by the innovators of the Islamic business. But then apart from that, there are number 2 consequent values. consequent values, when we have the Tawhid, Khalifah, worship, Tazkiyah, and Ihsan, inshallah, we will have a good attributes to Mahmudah. And then it will come together with honesty, transparency, justice, integrity, perseverance, determination, innovation, respect, passion, fair-mindedness, and all the good attributes they're supposed to be having by a Muslim, inshallah. One may probably think, yeah, all these good attributes maybe seems to be quite similar to what we find in the conventional business values. For instance, the conventional business values divided their values into two. Number one is what they call intangible values. There's integrity, perseverance, determination, innovation, respect, passion, and fair-mindedness, as what we have found in the consequent values of an Islamic business. And then apart from that, the conventional business values also consist of tangible values, which is monetary assets, stockholder equity, the fixtures, and also the utility. Even though the terms used seems to be similar, but actually the meanings are very different. It is very different because our values, our Islamic values, are entrenched, are based on Islamic basic values, whilst the conventional business values are not based on that Tawhid, Khalifah, worship, Tazkiyah, and Ihsan. So therefore, the integrity to conventional business values are different from the integrity from the Islamic business values. Or also the justice, for instance, the justice is quite different. The determination. And we have to go back to what we mean, what Islam means by justice, by transparency, by integrity, by tazkiyah and all that, as opposed to the integrity and all the terms that have been defined by conventional business value. So what I'm going to say here, and I think I don't have much time to explain the differences, but enough that if you can agree that actually the conventional business value are very different from Islamic business values, even though the terms used are quite the same. All right, but nowadays, we have to beware of the so-called Islamic values. We have to beware with the so-called Islamic values because now I think we have been trapped by contemporary trend now, at least through 4 ways. Number one is what I call universalization of Islamic values. Number 2 is the sanctification of Islamic values. Number 3, the realignment of Islamic values. And number 4, accommodation of Islamic values. Let me explain briefly what I meant by all that. Universalization of Islamic values. It means that some of our brothers and sisters are similarizing Islamic values with other religious, with other cultural or ideological values to be accepted by all. Say, for instance, like just now when we talk about transparency, the conventional business people will say that we also pro-transparency, but transparency to them is quite different from transparency that we're having in Islam. But there are people who try to similarize the values, similarize the values. Similarize the values in order to say that, look, our Islamic values are universal, and therefore all people have to be accepted, have to accept all that values. All that values. I think this is very dangerous. It leads us to confusion. So, for instance, we hear a quite popular findings of a person who went around to all over the world to see the Islamicity, the so-called Islamicity of the state. And he comes out by saying that Islam can be found, the Islamic practice can be found more in the Western countries, more in the non-Muslim countries rather than in Muslim countries. And therefore, they tend to summarize, they tend to conclude that actually, yeah, non-Muslim are practicing Islamic values more than the Muslim themselves. So I think this is wrong. Yeah, this is wrong. The first is that why, how can you say that there are more Islamic while they are, at the first place, are not even a Muslims? So you cannot say that someone who are non-Muslims are practicing Islamic values, sedangkan, yeah, they're not Muslims. I think this is a wrong concept and wrong perspective. And this is very dangerous, I think, yeah, because people are trying to similarize that. Say, for instance, we heard people saying that Japanese, Singaporeans are more clean than the Muslims in Indonesia, in Malaysia, and all that, yeah. But the concept of cleanliness is very different, because the concept of cleanliness to the non-Muslim probably entrenched in the hygienic things, yeah, entrenched in what they can see from the ayn, from their scientific, from their scientific observation, based on facts, rather than in Islam. It is not that we have to have the hygienic environment, but apart from that, we have to have the tazkiyah. When the term tazkiyah came in, the purification comes in. So the prerequisite to have the prerequisites of the cleanliness, Islamic cleanliness is quite different from the non-Muslims, right? That one. The other thing is the sanctification of Islamic values. Many people are tends to rationalize the Islamic values via scientific reasonings, via their mentals, based on the tangibles that can be seen, based on the factual the factual things that they have collected, and all these are done to convince one stance that Islamic values are good. So I think it's not enough to rationalize the Islamic values, to scienticize the Islamic values, without including the hype, yeah, the invisible domains of Islam. So I think this is also dangerous, the sanctification of Islamic values. The other thing is the realignment of Islamic values, which means that people are adjusting Islamic values to fulfill the contemporary worldly needs. Yeah, they are prepared to realign the Islamic values so that the Islamic values can be fit into the non-Muslim, non-Islamic philosophical underpinnings, non-Islamic philosophical framework, so that they can fulfill whatever that they want. And especially the desires they are looking for, they are intending for, are the worldly desires. Number 4 is the accommodation of Islamic values. Accommodation of Islamic values, which means that they are adopting the Islamic values into other philosophical framework to portray that Islam is tolerable, but please read it as not tolerable but apologetic nature of Islam. So meaning that they're ready to inject the Islamic values into in the case of business, for instance, into the philosophical underpinnings of the conventional business. And then by injecting with a few nas, say for instance with the verses of Al-Quran or the Hadith, and then they come to a conclusion that actually we are adopting the Islamic values, and therefore our business is Islamic, even though they do not really break up the philosophical underpinnings of the conventional business. So using the Islamic, we have to be beware. Yeah, we have to be aware of the use of Islamic values within the philosophical, within the conventional Western ethnocentric philosophical framework. So I think that's all that I need to say here. And inshallah, if there's any questions, we can ask. And if Pak Asno is still around, and probably inshallah, Pak Asno will help me to answer the question if I cannot answer it. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Thank you very much, Professor Dr. Muhammad Syukri Saleh, for the very insightful topic on the innovation and values in Islamic business. If I may conclude a little bit, key takeaway that from this presentation is there are state of meaning of innovation, and there are an ideal total innovation. We need 3 no's, which is no imitation, no competition, and no benchmarking. And also, to be able to innovate, it's not only innovation that must be Islamic, but the business must be so. So there are 7 principles that guarantees the dynamics of Islam in business innovation. The first one is mode, the second one is actor, the third one is time scale, and then also the framework. The 5th one is methodology, the 6th one is means, and the 7th is ultimate aim. And also beware, Professor also mentioned about the beware of Islamic values in business that is trapped in contemporary world. For example, the accommodation of Islamic values in other philosophical framework, and also rationalizing Islamic values via scientific reasoning, for example, mental, tangible, factual, to convince someone about this is Islamic value in business. All right, so for students and for participants, if you have any question, you can raise your hand, or you can ask your question in Q&A section, or even in the chat section. I will deliver the question to Professor. Okay, this is one question. There is no name, but I will read the question for Professor. Excuse me, the more I understand Islam, especially about usul fikih law, the more I scary or afraid with sins. What must Muslim entrepreneur do to solve misunderstanding about fikih that holds innovation?
Yeah, thank you for the questions. Yeah. I think the question portray a very good news to the person who asked. Yeah, because when you learn something, and you get confused, you are learning something actually, because the knowledge that you have stimulate your thinking, and also make you start to think, yeah, of things. Yeah, when you talk about fiqh and innovation, definitely there are terms which the Islamic scholars call ijtihad. So ijtihad, which means that they innovate something, a fatwa or a hukum, yeah, a regulation, based on their either a Quran hadith or ijma and qiyas, and especially the ijtihad is done to conclude on something or some problems which do not have a direct reference from Quran and hadith. So the Islamic scholars sit down and try to think, trying to discuss and all that, and come back with a fatwa, with a regulation to fit the positions of the hukum, of the regulation on that. So I think there are a lot of space in fiqh to innovate, and especially through the ijtihad, inshallah. Thank you. So, for instance, the most recent things that they are doing now, for instance, with maqasid sharia, with maqasid sharia, Imam Ghazali and after that Shatibi were discussing about maqasid sharia from the ibadah perspective. But then now, alhamdulillah, many brothers and sisters in Islamic economics, and in fact in almost many fields, that use maqasid syariah, to think about the implementation of maqasid syariah in this contemporary world. So inshallah, fiqh gives you a very wide space, vast space to innovate, inshallah.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. Um, for the second question, we have one question from another anonymous, but I hope this question is helpful. Okay. In this disruptive era, do you think Sharia business can attract many consumers in a company? Because as we can see nowadays, people are more comfortable with common business or conventional business, the one that not use Sharia, because they think that they all same. Example like conventional bank is more popular than Sharia one. So what do you think? Do you think Sharia business can attract many consumer for the companies?
Yeah, definitely. As a Muslim, I'm convinced. I'm convinced that Islamic business can attract a lot of people. Yeah. Uh, uh, apa ni? Say for instance, say for instance, one thing that now, which can attract a lot of people, including non-Muslims, is the halal business, for instance. Yeah? Halal business is based on the Islamic business. Even though non-Muslims are looking more into the profit, the revenues, the markets of the Islamic, of the halal consumers, but then halal business as an Islamic business are now becoming a trend, and also the expanding and expanding. And in Malaysia, for instance, we are establishing a halal hub, and our logo, our Malaysian halal logo, now I use in all over the world and acknowledged by people and all that. And then the halal is one of the best example that Islamic business can expand and can attract the people. Yeah, but unfortunately, at the moment, those people, those businessmen who are attracted to halal business are the non-Muslims. So our halal business nowadays is being dominated by the non-Muslims and also by the multinational corporation, such as Nestle, Danone, and all that. Yeah. So even though there are Muslims who are involved in the halal business, but we are doing that at the micro, medium, small enterprise rather than at the multinational level. So now we have our Islamic business, and it is very attractive, but it has been grabbed by the non-Muslims. It has been. Why? Because the Muslims themselves are not so confident with the Islamic business, and they keep on accusing Islamic business, such as Islamic banking, by saying that it is actually it's not Islamic. It is still based on the conventional banking system, and with all that. That's why I agree with that. That's why I was saying just now that if we were to innovate, if we were to introduce an Islamic, a purely really Islamic business, then we have to come out of the Western ethnocentric conventional framework to establish our framework, our own framework, and then grow from within that Islamic framework, inshallah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor. We have another question from Saskia. She asked about in Indonesia we have pegadaian. We call it pawn shop, so people can pawn the products and then they get in exchange for money, and then the next period they can reimburse it and get the product back. So for banking, Sharia banking, everybody knows about it. But how about pawn shop with Sharia concept? Do you think pawn shop can be changes or added to the Sharia concept? What do you think?
Yeah, this is also definitely that we can. Yeah, definitely. And in fact, in Malaysia, we have done that. We have done that. We have done that. Yeah. The pawn shops in Arabic they call it arrahnu. Yeah, arrahnu. yeah, Rahnu, yeah. Uh, People who has little money, but then they have the collateral, like for instance, they have the jewelry and all that, they can go to the pawn shops, to the Rahnu, yeah, put the jewelry there, the collateral there, and then the Rahnu will give the money. And then when they return the money, when they pay the money, and then the pawn shop will return the jewelry, right? Uh, the conventional business probably uh, ask a questions, yeah. How can do they have the profit? How come a pawn shop can have a profit? Yeah, because when you get the money from the Arahnu, when you pay back, you have to pay back exactly uh, of the amounts that you have borrowed from the yeah. So there are two things. In Malaysia, one of the first Arahnu is the state of Terengganu. So they don't get the profit. So what they do is this, yeah, the government inject the money into the Arahnu, yeah, they inject the money into the Arahnu, they give they give the borrowings of the money to the people, and then they keep the jewelry. So when the people come to take back the jewelry, the people at the Arahnu are asking the clients whether they want to do the hibah, yeah, to contribute a little bit. So it is free actually. They don't have to contribute, but they are willing to contribute. They can contribute in whatever amounts that they want to contribute. But then still, with the amount that they get from the hibah, they don't have, the Arahnu don't have much money. They don't have much money to pay the workers, to pay the employees, and then but then the government keep on injecting the money to support the Arahnu, to help the poor, to help to not the poor, to help the people who come, the clients, yeah? Because the people who comes to Arahnu, they are not poor. They have something. They have some valuable things that they can put into the Arahnu. The poor do not have anything, yeah. So actually, Arahnu serve more of a middle class Muslim who has a little bit of wealth, yeah, to take the money from Arahnu, putting their wealth, their jewelry, the cultural in the Arahnu system. So the first things to do is that the government themselves injecting the money to help the middle class to say, for instance, to run their business or to get the capital and all that. And the government is helping them through the Arahnu. But then after that, not many government likes the idea. They want a little bit of, not really profit, but at least they can cover the salary of the operations of Arahnu and all that. Yeah, the operational cost, the salary of the workers, of the employers and all that. So what they do is that whenever a person comes to put their jewelry or anything in there, so they get the upah, meaning that you put your valuables in our Arahnu. Yeah, we take care of the Arahnu. We take care of the valuables, and you need to pay for that. Yeah, you need to pay for that. So they are paying the upah, not the profit. Yeah, not the profit, but the upah. So they're taking the upah from that, and it depends on the values of the valuables, and then they get the money from there, and that becomes the machines for them, the capital for them to run the Arahnu. So it's happening in Malaysia. Then inshallah it is quite potential, because nowadays Islamic financial systems nowadays, Islamic banking only serve the people with money, and the people with less money, but they have the valuables, they have the lands, all of that, so that they can borrow from the banks, and then Arahnu helps serve the middle class with a little bit of valuables, and then they can use the Ahranu to get the capital to run their business. At the moment, uh, we also have zakat for the poor, yeah. And in fact, there are zakat institutions who give the zakat to the poor, to distribute the zakat to the poor, to do the business. So now, alhamdulillah, at the moment, almost all levels of society are now getting the benefits from the Islamic financial system, inshallah. Thank you.
I have another question from our colleague, Mrs. Lohana. She's saying, thank you for sharing. It's really interesting that you share with us to be aware of Islamic values in doing business. And as far as she knows, Islam is rahmatan lil alamin. So when the world is adopting Islamic values in their business activities or in their daily life, she thinks it was really great. And could you give us some example why we have to be aware of that? I mean, why is this important?
You mean the values, why we have to be aware of the Islamic values, the contemporary Islamic values at the moment?
The concept of Islamic values.
Or the concept of Islamic values. So as what I was saying just now, that people tend to use the Islamic values for the benefit of this world, not of the world hereafter. And therefore, in order to convince the people that Islamic values are good, so they try to, the first things that I was saying just now is try to scientificize the Islamic values to fulfill the satisfactions of the non-Muslims. And then also they try to accommodate the Islamic values within the framework of the non-Muslim framework, business framework. And also they try to universalize the values, meaning that as a whole, we are not actually, the people are using the Islamic values for the benefits of the worldly profits and also revenues. They are actually using the Islamic values and not conceptualizing or redefining what is the Islamic values from Islamic perspective, rather than taking the values from the conventional business and then use it for the sake of the worldly benefit. Okay? So for instance, if we go back to the concept of work, for instance, definitely in a business we have the workers. We have the workers, and then if for instance, one woman stops from working in that company, and then the people with the Islamic, with the so-called Islamic values, unredefined Islamic values, they'll say that, look, pity her, she was working in our company nicely, getting the money, getting the wages, getting the salary, but now he stopped working now, so she has no work at the moment. So, but according to Islam, working at home as a housewife, it is also working actually. But the different concept, this is two different concepts. To conventional business, working means that doing something and getting money. Doing something and getting money. While in Islam, you work, you are saying that you are working whenever you do something and getting reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's not necessarily the money, but also the reward from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So the concept of work is very different from the concept of work in Islamic, in conventional business. Also the concept of poverty, for instance, from Islamic, from conventional business, poverty is seen through the level of incomes. But in Islam, it's not only that. We'll also deal with the poverty of the spiritual domains of the people. So instead of getting the tangible as income, we are also using the intangible things, which is within ourselves. So when we take into consideration of all that spiritual things, And then the concept of poverty is very different from the concept of poverty understood and defined by the conventional business. This is just a few examples, and I think that's why it is quite dangerous. And we have to beware with that kind of usage of the so-called Islamic values.
Okay. Thank you so much, Professor, for the answer. We still have 7 minutes, and we still have one or two more questions. The question is what she get from this is from our colleague Mrs. Raisa. What she get from our from your presentation is that doing imitation is wrong, right? So, but at the moment there are so many products that being imitated in the world, even in Indonesia or maybe in Malaysia as well, and it attract a lot of consumers. So, what do you think on this phenomenon?
No problem. You can imitate the products, but you cannot say that you are actually innovating the products. You are actually involved in innovation. Because imitating means you follow whatever that people are doing. Yeah, and then you will end up by becoming the followers, not the leaders. Innovation means being a leader. You innovate some things. You lead the way forward. Yeah, but then if you imitate, you are not actually leading. You are following. And for the people who are imitating some products, and say that they are actually innovating, it is not true. And in fact, the word modification, modifying, is much more better than innovation. Yeah. So actually, they are modifying the products by imitating the existing products to produce the so-called new products. Right? Yeah.
Can I say something on that one, Bu Arum?
Yes, of course. From Pak Dedi.
Hasnul, Bu.
Oh, Pak Hasnul. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Professor. I think we are talking about innovation from different perspective. Yeah. So let me share this slide. Because dimension of innovation, there are 3 dimensions actually. The first one will be radical innovation. Let me share this slide.
Yeah, we can see your slide, Pak Hasnul.
Already, yeah, sorry. Let me go to the slide. Sorry. So based on what I know, maybe I'm wrong. So please correct me, Professor, if I'm wrong. Innovation, there are some dimensions of the innovation. Starting from the very small one, which we call it incremental innovation, or very radical one, new to the world. Yeah. What I discuss is more or less on incremental. You are right. Copying, like any innovative thinking, like from vertical thinking, from what the product, you increase something like this camper. This happen now in the world, but not really the radical one. I agree with you. It's only incremental. Like a process, you want to improve the process, reduce the speed, increase the speed, reduce the number of process. That's also innovation, but incremental. Now, what I explain actually start from incremental or maybe something in the middle, which is new to enterprise. But what you are doing is the right thing from the top one, which is the something quite new. Don't let don't copy from others. Don't, in Indonesia, we call it ATM, yeah? What is it? Modify, something like that. Observe, copy, and modify. Sometimes company, that only on the left part. So I think we need to understand also that some innovation is also on the left side. That's what I like to see that from that dimension. But if you want to be on radical, we need to be more than just innovation, maybe invention, really something new. That's my 1 cent to the discussion. Thank you.
Thank you, Pak Hasnul. Professor Sukri, do you want to say something?
Thank you very much, Pak Hasnul. I agree very much with what you are saying. We are looking innovation from a different perspective. You are looking from the conventional business perspective, and I'm looking from the Islamic perspective. Yeah, and for this, I think I can accept your ideas. Actually, by by using the incremental innovation, the enterprise innovation, the radical innovation. It is a process actually. Yeah, it's more of a process of doing things. And I agree with you that actually we cannot do at once. Yeah, in the first place, through by doing the radical innovations, we needed to change totally the things that we are in. Yeah, we need to have a kind of evolutionary approach rather than revolutionary approach. So I agree with that, and therefore I think the principle is this. Yeah, the philosophical underpinning is this: innovations means a total creations of things, yeah, rather than imitating of things. That is called but along the process, yeah, definitely we have to start from below a little bit, and then becoming higher and higher, and hopefully that one day, yeah, we can change the world, inshallah, with our innovation, inshallah. So I'm sure that the innovators, yeah, in the business world are also doing that. Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, they start with small things and then start what Pak Asnul was saying, incremental. And the incremental process is, yes, and it's more of an evolutionary process. Yeah? Because, say, for instance, if you reject everything that we have now, yeah, and then we want to create a new things, the totally new things, that is impossible. This is impossible in this real world. Yeah, I agree with you, Pak Asnul. Thank you very much for your opinion.
Thank you, Professor.
Okay. Thank you, Professor and Pak Hasnul, for the 2 cents to contribute to the Pak Sukri perspective.